Have you ever wondered how an ancient galactic alliance might perceive Earth? Imagine the Galactic Coalition, an assembly of dominant alien species watching humanity's rise with a mix of curiosity and patronizing caution. In their eyes, humans were just a brief flare, a minor anomaly destined to fade. Their socio-cultural risk assessments and predictive analytics, think of them as cosmic actuarial tables, dismissed us as manageable. Expansion? Sure. Infighting? Likely. Plateau? Inevitable, they thought. Now, you might be thinking, weren't humans making waves? Absolutely, but the Coalition's doctrine was all about preemptive control. Imagine a chess master believing they've already won on move 10. But as human colonies thrived in harsh, so-called death world zones and adapted with gene therapy to alien diseases, a quiet unease brewed in the halls of power. Their modeling algorithms, much like our weather forecasts, but for civilization, started spitting out errors. Let me set the stage. The Coalition decided to act before the human problem could become a galactic crisis. They thought it would be one and done. Oh, how wrong they were. Picture this. No warning, no ultimatum, just sudden annihilation. The Coalition launched its cleansing. Human colonies blinked out, orbital bombardments turned cities to glass, and bioengineered plagues customized through CRISPR-like gene editing reigned on Earth-adjacent sectors. Nanite storms, which you can think of as microscopic locusts programmed for destruction, devoured habitats. Simultaneously, electromagnetic pulses, massive cosmic power outages crippled our fleets. In 72 hours, 99 million lives ended. It was methodical, almost surgical. The Coalition's intent wasn't genocide, just spirit-breaking. Now, maybe you're asking, didn't they expect a surrender? Yes, Coalition strategists banked on psychological collapse, apologies, ceasefire pleas, desperation. Instead, they got something far more chilling. Here's the twist. Humanity didn't break, didn't beg, didn't even respond. The galaxy waited for the white flag and got only silence. What does it mean when an entire civilization goes dark? No surrender, no threats, not even a cry for help. The Coalition faced the most dangerous silence imaginable. Civilian channels quiet, human ships gone from patrol lanes, no signals, no traffic. Even Coalition intelligence, with its quantum decryption and predictive AI, was blind. Now, you might wonder, was this defeat or something else? Here's the kicker. It wasn't the silence of surrender. It was the silence of preparation, of transformation. Within days, whispers began. Coalition outposts slaughtered with surgical precision, warships lost mid-transmission, merchant convoys haunted by ghostly vessels. The term asymmetric warfare doesn't even begin to cover it. Let me tell you, a silence like that is the calm before a storm. The kind of calm that makes the enemy check under their beds at night. Every war spawns legends, but when those legends stalk you, it's a different story. Coalition troops began whispering about the Boogeyman and the Baba Yaga names borrowed from Earth's own folklore, now weaponized in the void. The Boogeyman? Not a single human, but an entire unit. Think Navy SEALs with alien tech, trained for infiltration and vanishing acts that would make Houdini jealous. The Baba Yaga? Allegedly one unstoppable human, a myth made flesh. Coalition High Command dismissed these tales as combat stress, what psychologists call mass hysteria. But the reports multiplied, and every failed operation left more evidence behind. Now you might ask, how could a handful of operatives destabilize galactic order? The answer lies in psychological warfare turning rumor into terror, legend into reality. Before long, those names were more feared than any weapon. The galaxy had just met humanity's monsters, and they were very, very real. Let me paint you a picture. Instead of fracturing, Earth's governments unified with a clarity born of loss. What the Coalition expected to shatter human unity actually forged it into something terrifyingly focused. Classified protocols like doomsday folders locked away for centuries were dusted off. Facilities powered by cold fusion reactors, dormant for generations, roared to life. Projects labeled too dangerous and inhumane, think bioenhanced operatives and forbidden AI, were greenlit. No armies marched. Instead, specialist living weapons were unleashed. Imagine cybernetically augmented agents, trained for zero-G infiltration and equipped with stealth fields. Now, you'd expect negotiations, right? Demands, ultimatums. None came. Humanity's retaliation was silent, surgical, and above all relentless. It's proof that sometimes the worst thing you can do to an enemy is give them nothing left to lose and all the unity they need to fight back. Here's a battlefield most strategists overlook: the mind. As human operatives struck, fear spread faster than any virus. Coalition moralians, unbreakable, crumbled under relentless psychological assault. Alien commanders who once joked about death worlders now triple-checked every shadow. Stories of infiltrators bypassing biometric locks. Think of someone hacking your phone, but it's your spaceship became daily briefings. Let me tell you a story. In one notorious incident, a coalition flagship exploded while docked in a supposedly secure port. The only clue? A single human word etched into the hull: remember. You might ask, why didn't the coalition counterstrike work? Because every move was anticipated, every countermeasure already compromised. It's the military equivalent of fighting your own shadow. In the end, fear became the most effective weapon of all. The coalition's strength turned against itself. Let's talk tactics. Gone were traditional battles, no armies clashing across open fields. This was the age of sabotage and shadow warfare. Human operatives infiltrated key hubs, planting logic bombs, self-triggering computer viruses, and disabling life support systems with nanite swarms. Imagine waking up aboard a warship, only to find every vital system taken offline, doors locked, atmosphere vented, security bypassed. Coalition officers witnessed this nightmare again and again. Survivors were intentionally left alive not as mercy, but as messengers. Their accounts spread dread faster than any propaganda campaign. You see, this was more than war. It was methodical, dismantling one strike at a time, until even the most fortified worlds felt vulnerable. Military defeat is one thing, but what about economic collapse? Human specialists didn't just target ships, they targeted the coalition's backbone, its financial and social systems. Using quantum encryption algorithms, they crashed entire economies. Think of it as Wall Street gone rogue, but on a galactic scale. They planted forged transmissions, sowed false evidence, and turned allies against each other. Coalition intelligence called it information warfare, weaponized disinformation that shattered trust. Now imagine being an alien leader whose own allies suspect you of betrayal. Paranoia skyrocketed. Command structures collapsed not from external attack but from the inside. It's a reminder. Sometimes the most devastating war isn't fought with guns or ships, but with data and doubt. So what happens when the predators become prey? The coalition, once the galaxy's apex force, was now retreating, abandoning sectors, fortifying homeworlds, and praying their defenses would hold. Convoys vanished without trace. Hidden bases eradicated overnight. Even encrypted comm relays, think of them as interstellar internet backbones, went ominously silent. You might be thinking, why couldn't they regroup? Because every attempt to counterattack ended in catastrophe. Human operatives moved with impunity, exploiting every vulnerability. The worst realization? The coalition wasn't just losing territory, they were losing the psychological war, becoming the hunted in a galaxy they once ruled. This wasn't about justice or negotiation. It was about vengeance, a primal force that wouldn't be bargained with. In the end, the galaxy learned a lesson too late. Some enemies don't roar, they whisper. Humanity issued no demands, sent no ambassadors. Their message was their silence and the devastation they left behind. Every operation, every ghostly strike, every ruin bore the same chilling phrase: we remember, a simple message yet loaded with centuries of pain and retribution. Now, you might ask, was this victory? In military terms, perhaps. But in moral terms, it was a warning etched into the stars. The Boogeyman and the Baba Yaga weren't just soldiers, they were doctrines, reminders that some nightmares can't be contained. That vengeance, once unleashed, is as inevitable as gravity. So next time you hear tales of humanity's wrath among the stars, remember, the real terror doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it leaves only silence and a promise never to forget. Let's start at the beginning. Why did humanity's retaliation shake the galaxy to its core? Imagine being on the receiving end of a campaign so precise, so relentless, that even the most advanced civilizations felt powerless. After the erasure of 99 million lives on Earth, humanity's response was forged not from hate, but from cold, calculated necessity. Their doctrine wasn't just about fighting back, it was about redefining the very nature of warfare. Here's the setup. The Coalition expected a conventional counterattack. The conflict? Humanity rewrote the rules, blending psychological warfare with surgical precision. The result? A retaliatory doctrine that weaponized terror and uncertainty as much as plasma and steel. Now, you might be thinking, can fear really topple empires? Stay with me, because the answer lies in the next chapter of this chilling saga. Let me tell you a story. The first Coalition fleet to enter human space vanished without a trace. No debris, no distress signals. The only evidence? Encrypted ghost signals bouncing between disabled satellites, a classic example of electronic countermeasures used to erase digital footprints. This was more than vengeance. It was an operational doctrine planned, tested, and unleashed with ruthless efficiency. So, why did the galaxy struggle to understand? Because humanity wasn't playing the same game anymore. They'd become the stuff of nightmares, and nightmares, as we'll see, are hard to fight. Next up is the Boogeyman. Not a fairy tale monster, but a doctrinian entire playbook for psychological warfare. Setup. Coalition soldiers whispered about the American Boogeyman. Conflict. Those whispers became screams as fleets vanished, command posts fell, and nobody saw it coming. Here's the twist. The Boogeyman wasn't a single operative, but a distributed network of elite human units. Each cell used dead drop encryption. Think of it as digital message in a bottle, impossible to trace, paired with predictive algorithms that outmaneuvered the Coalition's best security AIs. Now, you might ask, how can independent units coordinate so perfectly? The answer is redundant CH team operated with overlapping intelligence, ensuring the mission continued even if others were lost. Picture this: planetary shields dropping from within, orbital cannons turning on their own fleets. That's the power of infiltration, of asymmetric warfare where a handful of operatives dismantle entire armies from the shadows. It's like fighting a hydra. Cut off one head and two more appear. The Coalition couldn't anticipate, couldn't block, couldn't sleep. And so, the Boogeyman became more than a rumor. It became the definition of death in the dark, and every shadow in the galaxy grew longer. Let's go deeper. How did these operatives actually work? The setup: Coalition planetary shields and command centers considered impregnable. The conflict: human operatives slipped inside, often disguised using biometric spoofing, think facial recognition, but hacked on a molecular Leaveland quantum encryption, the gold standard for scrambling data. Now you might wonder, how did they get past so many layers of defense? Imagine disabling an entire defense grid by swapping out a single line of code, or using predictive analysis to anticipate patrol schedules down to the second. Let me tell you about orbital cannons. Once controlled by the enemy, now turned against them. Human units would seize the guns, annihilate fleets in minutes, and disappear before alarms sounded. The result? Not just dead soldiers, but dead systems power structures crumbling without a shot fired in anger. In short, infiltration wasn't about brute force, it was about making the enemy's own strength their greatest weakness. Now, let's talk about the real weapon: fear. Setup: Coalition troops trained for every scenario except fighting ghosts. Conflict: as the Boogeyman's legend grew, entire crews deserted, ships abandoned sectors, and officers triggered self-destruct protocols at the mere rumor of human infiltration. This is where mass hysteria meets military doctrine. You might ask, why did seasoned commanders lose their nerve? Because psychological warfare using dread as a force multiplier breaks armies without firing a shot. Think of it like a contagion. One rumor spreads, and suddenly every shadow hides a killer. And this isn't just paranoia, it's a calculated result of information operations, or info-ops, designed to amplify terror. Let me give you a real example. A Coalition ship, upon detecting a ghost signal, burned its databanks and self-destructed, even though no human was present. That's the power of psychological collapse. And when fear spreads faster than ships can travel, you know the war is already lost. Now, let's meet the other legend, the Baba Yaga. Unlike the distributed terror of the Boogeyman, Baba Yaga was a singular force, always the same figure, always unstoppable. Setup: rumors of a lone human cutting through battalions. Conflict: nobody could agree who or what the Baba Yaga actually was. Is it a super soldier, a combat AI, or the embodiment of human vengeance? Coalition intelligence agencies clashed, offering everything from genetic engineering, customized DNA for enhanced resilience, to the theory of an advanced autonomous chassis, a robot in human form. Picture the scene. Secure installations breached, command ships detonated from within, and a single survivor whispering, "It was the Baba Yaga. That's the myth at work." You might ask, how could one person do so much damage? The answer, in part, is operational tempo moving so fast, hitting so hard, that defenders never recover. Where the Baba Yaga walked, devastation followed. The myth became a doctrine, and the doctrine became reality. So why did these myths matter? Because humans didn't just fight battles. They waged war on perception itself. Setup: coalition command structures used to certainty and control. Conflict: human operatives destroyed that certainty, turning every rumor into a weapon. This is what we call mimetic warfare, using ideas and stories as weapons, spreading fear faster than any virus. The Boogeyman and Baba Yaga weren't just soldiers, they were the edge of human vengeance, sharpened by centuries of myth-making. Let me give you an example. When human operatives left behind the words "we remember" at every site, the message wasn't just for the coalition. It was for everyone watching, a psychological operation psyop that forced the enemy to question their every move. Now, you might be thinking, can stories really win wars? In the digital age, yes. A well-placed myth can paralyze fleets, shatter alliances, and turn commanders into cowards. That's the genius of the human campaign. They weaponized their own legends, and the galaxy fell for it. Let's examine the aftershocks. The coalition began to unravel from within. Setup: a once unified command, rich with resources and confidence. Conflict: human operatives infiltrated networks, fabricated ghost signals, and orchestrated false flag operations, classic deception tactics that turned allies into enemies. Here's a technical term: social engineering. It's the art of manipulating people into making security mistakes. The result? Coalition allies began to distrust each other. Entire species withdrew, and trade routes collapsed. You might wonder, how did such a vast empire fall so quickly? Because the coalition's greatest strength, their unity, became a liability. Paranoia spread, purges began, and loyalty fractured. Let me tell you, officers vanished, command posts went dark, and planets declared neutrality just to avoid human attention. The coalition's infrastructure, built over centuries, crumbled almost overnight. In the end, the most advanced civilization in the galaxy was undone by silence, suspicion, and the deliberate breakdown of trust. Now, let's talk tech and tactics. Human operatives didn't just rely on stealth, they adapted faster than anyone thought possible. Setup: unfamiliar weapons, improvised devices, and bioadaptive technology gear that evolved during the campaign. Conflict: the coalition's plasma weapons and standardized defenses became obsolete almost overnight. Think about exosuits-powered armor that absorbs or deflects plasma, allowing operatives to survive direct hits, or biological agents, custom-tailored to bypass alien immune systems. These are not science fiction gadgets. They're asymmetric tools designed for maximum disruption. Now, you might ask, why would humans risk themselves in suicidal attacks? Because every mission prioritized eliminating leadership even at the cost of the operative's life. That's tactical, self-sacrificia, calculated choice to cripple command and control. Let me give you a concrete image. A squad of humans storming a command node, knowing they won't survive but ensuring no orders will ever be given again from that room. Their willingness to die for the mission wasn't just strategy. It was a message. There's no defense against someone who has nothing left to lose. What happens when even the best leaders lose faith? Setup: coalition capitals, once impregnable, now falling without battles. Conflict: human strike teams infiltrate, disable defenses, and withdraw before reinforcements arrive. The result? Confidence evaporates and morale plummets. You might wonder, why didn't they fight back harder? Because the coalition's own commanders stopped believing in victory. Automated defense grids, AI-controlled kill zones were turned against their owners through cyber warfare, a form of digital sabotage that manipulates machine logic to friendly fire. Let me give you a direct example. After the first galactic capital fell, entire garrisons defected and local governments declared neutrality. The message left behind? We are already here. That simple phrase sparked panic. Imagine your capital city falling overnight, not to armies, but to shadows. The psychological toll was irreversible. In the end, The greatest weapon wasn't firepower. It was the total collapse of will, engineered by masters of psychological operations and surgical strikes. Let's wrap with a crucial insight. Humanity's silence was their deadliest weapon. Setup: coalition leaders desperate to negotiate, to understand, to plead for peace. Conflict: humanity issued no demands, no ultimatums, just relentless action. That's operational opacity, when the enemy offers no information to exploit. Now, you might think, isn't it easier to fight an enemy that talks? Absolutely. Silence breeds uncertainty. The coalition's intelligence networks built on intercepts and code breaking were rendered useless. Every captured human operative self-terminated or refused to speak, even under the most advanced interrogation protocols, including neural mapping and biochemical extraction. Let me tell you, some alien species even offered to defect in exchange for mercy. The humans didn't respond. They advanced, single-minded, and implacable. In the final analysis, the silence wasn't just a lack of communication. It was a doctrinia, living, breathing weapon that shattered the galaxy's ability to fight back. The lesson? Sometimes the scariest thing in war is not what you see, but what you never hear coming. Let's open with a question: how does a galactic empire start to fall apart? The coalition's decline wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow, suffocating implosion. Entire sectors became ghost towns, with power grids flickering out and supply lines cut. Imagine a city where phones ring non-stop, but no help ever arrives. Multiply that by 1,000 star systems. The technical term here is infrastructure attrition, when the backbone of civilization energy, logistics, rots away. Why didn't the coalition just regroup? Well, communication choke points, those vital nodes that connect fleets, became jammed with desperate calls. In the face of this chaos, the infamous Boogeyman and Baba Yaga haunted every corridor. It wasn't just military defeat, it was psychological unraveling. Now, you might be thinking, couldn't they just mount a counterattack? But what if you're fighting shadows that know your every move before you make it? The setup was there, a proud empire, the conflict, their inability to adapt to invisible, all-encompassing pressure. The resolution? Collapse became inevitable the moment panic infected their war councils. Picture this. Starfleets once ruling the star lanes now fragment into scattered paranoid clusters. Why? The term here is force dispersion, a classic military blunder when units lose cohesion out of fear. Coalition admirals were terrified of fixed positions, constantly on the run, watching for telltale infiltration. It's like a chess grandmaster suddenly playing every piece defensively. What caused this breakdown? Infiltration vectors. Human operatives slipped through every crack, making even the most advanced ships feel exposed. Let me tell you a story. One fleet tried to regroup at a hidden nebula only to find half their ships sabotaged from within. The setup was their numerical superiority, the conflict, their loss of trust, the resolution, a retreat into isolation. Without unity, their dominance evaporated overnight. Desperation breeds risk. The coalition threw everything into one last unified Striker Grand Armada, deploying experimental warships and psychic operatives. Sounds impressive, right? But what's an armada if every move is anticipated? Here, contingency planning, the art of preparing for every possible enemy action, was humanity's secret weapon. Now, you might ask, how did humans outmaneuver psychic detection and high-tech defenses? Simple: pre-sabotage. Human agents had already disabled navigation and triggered cascading failures in weapons. The armada imploded, not from enemy fire, but from its own compromised systems. The setup was a show of force. The conflict, invisible sabotage. The resolution, catastrophic self-destruction. Sometimes, the greatest threat is the one you never see coming. Ever wonder what happens when the enemy has keys to every door? The coalition's supply chains, intelligence networks, and automated defenses were riddled with deep infiltration. Think of it as termites hollowing out a house. The technical terms here are supply chain compromise and network penetration. Both mean that nothing, from food shipments to encrypted comms, was safe. Suppose you're a coalition officer. Do you trust your orders, your rations, even your security droids? Many didn't. They fled or defected. But humanity had no interest in new allies or negotiations. The setup: a complex, interdependent war machine. The conflict: total exposure. The resolution: paralysis and collapse from within. When trust dies, so does the empire. Let's talk about psychological warfare. The Boogeyman and Baba Yaga names whispered in fear were more than assassins. They were force multipliers, amplifying terror across the front. What does that mean? A single agent's actions ripple outward, causing panic way beyond the immediate target. Their operations were decapitation strikes, eliminating high-value targets with surgical precision. Imagine you're a coalition general, you see your peers erased overnight, command structures vanish. The setup: elite troops guarding vital hubs. The conflict: unstoppable, untraceable strikes. The resolution: paralysis as nobody feels safe. Legends like these turn war into a game of shadows where fear is the deadliest weapon. How does silence become more terrifying than open threats? The coalition's broadcast shifted from orders to pleas, warning everyone to avoid human territory. Here, information warfare, the manipulation of broadcast channels and operational security, denying the enemy any information, became humanity's unspoken doctrine. Now you might be thinking, why not negotiate or surrender? But what if the other side simply ignores you, as if you're already irrelevant? The setup: desperate calls for truce. The conflict: unreturned messages, intercepted probes. The resolution: existential dread. In war, sometimes the loudest message is total, unyielding silence. Let's get technical. Human operatives went beyond battlefields. They weaponized civil infrastructure, turning energy grids and transport networks into attack vectors. These are dual-use systems tools meant for daily life, suddenly repurposed for devastation. Imagine your water supply becoming toxic overnight, or your transit network routing you into a trap. Let me tell you a story. One star system lost its entire power grid, plunging cities into chaos, while evacuation ships were redirected into asteroid belts. The setup: reliance on automated systems. The conflict: systems hijacked. The resolution: self-destruction from within. When the very structures that keep you alive are compromised, resistance is futile. Desperate to trap the Boogeyman and Baba Yaga, the coalition deployed hunter-killer fleets, specialized task forces bristling with advanced tracking systems. These fleets vanished, ambushed by human operatives who had already mapped their supply lines. The technical terms here: logistical interdiction, cutting off supplies, and signal obfuscation, hiding true positions. Now, you might ask, how can entire fleets disappear without a fight? It's like sending a search party into a fog, only for the fog itself to swallow them. The setup: overwhelming force. The conflict: invisible traps. The resolution: erasure from the record books. Sometimes, the harder you chase a ghost, the faster you become one yourself. What happens when leadership turns on itself? Coalition command fractured under internal paranoia, the fear that any officer could be a human collaborator. This is a classic case of organizational breakdown, where trust erodes and civil order dissolves. Executions, purges, even civil wars erupted among former allies. Let me tell you a story. A coalition governor executed her own security chief, only to discover days later that her staff had been compromised from the start. The setup: an empire under siege. The conflict: leaders devouring their own. The resolution: collapse into warring enclaves. When unity dies, so does any hope of recovery. Now, let's address the question: was humanity's response just rage or something deeper? Alien historians uncovered that doctrines like the Boogeyman and Baba Yaga were centuries in the making. This is about doctrinal continuity, the practice of embedding long-term strategies into a culture and legacy operations, actions that endure beyond a single generation. You might be wondering, why didn't the coalition see this coming? They mistook patience for weakness, not realizing humans had cataloged vulnerabilities and mapped infiltration routes years in advance. The setup: an enemy underestimated. The conflict: the slow reveal of a patient, orchestrated plan. The resolution: a vengeance that reshaped history. This wasn't reaction, it was the activation of legacy. Let's close with the aftermath. What happens when the storm passes? Humanity claimed no new territory, left no occupying forces. The concept here is deterrence by example, altering behavior through fear of repetition and power projection, the ability to shape events without direct presence. Galactic survivors adopted an unspoken law: don't provoke Earth. The setup: a shattered galaxy. The conflict: a new paradigm of fear. The resolution: lasting silence, legends persisting where armies once stood. Humanity withdrew, but their reputation became the ultimate weapon. Sometimes, the greatest victory is never having to fight again.